One job is no longer enough here in Korea, as quite a number of people choose to hold 2 or more jobs to make ends meet and more. So what are the statistics telling us about the presence of these jacks of many trades? What are the main reasons behind their decision to seek multiple jobs? And what are the broader implications of this phenomenon? Hello and welcome. You're watching Issues and Insiders for this Tuesday, May 14th, here in South Korea. I'm Min Sunhee. A growing number of people here in the country are opting for multiple jobs. And for more on this phenomenon, I have Professor Kim Jo-eun at the KDI School of Public Policy and Management. Professor Kim, it's been a while. Welcome back.
Thank you for inviting me again.
I also have Kwon Soa with us. Soa, it's great to have you here.
Hello, Sunny.
Right then, Soa, what are these statistics telling us about the presence of people with more than one job?
Well, the number of so-called N-jobbers, how we like to say here in Korea, people who have multiple jobs or a side job or more than one side job, has been growing rapidly in recent years, especially among young adults and those in their 40s. According to data from Statistics Korea's National Economic Activity Survey late last month, the average number of multi-job holders a month stood at 552,000 in the first quarter this year. That's the figure in the bottom right corner. So this is a more than 22% increase from the same quarter last year when we had some 451,000. Now, by age, the elderly working population, or those in their 60s, had the highest number of employed people with side jobs at over 194,000. That's followed by those in their 50s and 40s. As you can see, the number is going up in all age groups, but the biggest increase of side job holders is seen in the 15 to 29 and 40s bracket. These saw an on-quarter hike by close to 31 and 28% respectively. While the proportion of N-jobbers among all workers is still relatively small, it's growing at rapid speed. There were just 1.3% in 2019, but as of last year, almost 2% among the total workforce.
Right, I see. Professor Kim, how do you explain this growing phenomenon?
In my perspective, the rapid increase in multiple job holders, especially among young adults and those in their 40s, can be attributed to several factors. And one of the fundamental sources of this trend is growing economic insecurity and financial insecurity, especially in the labor market. In the past, following a traditional path to success, such as graduating from college, often lead to lifelong employment in a stable, standard job that provided employment protection, benefits, and even a pension after retirement. However, increased competition in the labor market and changes in the industrial structure have led to an increase in non-standard forms of employment, such as part-time work and irregular work and dispatch labor. And these types of jobs do not typically offer long-term employment protection and tends to be short-term. And under these conditions, many workers find it necessary to take on multiple jobs to maintain financial stability. And moreover, stagnant wages and rising cost of living have made it increasingly difficult for some people to make ends meet with just one job. And this is particularly true for young adults who are just starting their careers and those in their 40s who may have a significant financial responsibility, such as supporting a family. And another factor particularly relevant to Korean context is the growing burden of debt, such as housing loans. In Korean context, in recent years, many people have invested heavily in housing, and the increasing interest rates make it challenging for them to meet their basic needs while also paying off their substantial interest obligations. And lastly, there are also growing concern about financial security in later life. And even if some people can manage their finances currently, they worry about securing financial well-being as they age. And this is especially relevant in Korean context where fertility rates are declining and life expectancy is increasing, which means that there will be more and more people dependent on fewer working population. And many people fear the national pension system in Korea won't be able to take care of their later lives. So all these factors contribute to a significant increase in multiple job holders in Korea.
Right, and staying with these job holders, so what more can you tell us about their traits?
Let's start with educational background. It seems like among those who seek different sources of income, there's a rising population of highly educated people. According to a report by the Korea Labor Institute, close to 27% of multi-jobbers in 2022 were university graduates, an increase from less than 25%. The proportion of postgraduate students rose from 3.7% in 2018 to 4.1% in 2022, whereas a drop was found among those who graduated only from high school or lower level education, from around 21 to 17% in the same span. Now, more than 4 out of 10 people with at least 2 jobs were self-employed, and a little more than that chose to run a business as their second job. The secondary jobs tend to be concentrated in occupations and industries that don't require specialized skills, the report found. As of 2022, the proportion of women in more than one job stood at 46%, and that is a rising trend. What's also an interesting trend we're seeing recently is that many highly educated employees working at conglomerates are turning to side jobs, such as operating their own food business at night. So those you would commonly have thought don't really need that extra job. So if we take a look at the top reasons or advantages of having multi-jobs based on a survey conducted last year, close to 1 in 2 people said to have that extra little money, 27% and close to 26% to save in their young days and for retirement. So that was a pretty similar answer, and also what Professor Kim mentioned before. Struggling to make a living only through your main job, seeing the benefit of making money with your hobby, and making purchases beyond essential living expenses made up roughly 20% each.
Right. Professor Kim, what would you say are the broader implications of this phenomenon? I mean, how does it look to affect our society going forward?
First of all, regarding the growing trend of highly educated individuals taking on multiple jobs in Korea, suggests a significant mismatch between their skills and the job market. Typically, the secondary or tertiary job that people take on tend to be lower quality compared to the primary job. And these additional jobs often require less skills and offer limited opportunities for career development and advancement. As a result, highly educated individuals who engage in multiple jobs may not be able to fully actualize their potential or utilize their expertise. And this phenomenon raises concerns at the country level about the underutilization of human capital, which may have potential negative impact on productivity, innovation, and overall economic growth. And another thing is, this could also suggest increasing social inequalities in the working conditions. While Soa mentioned that the proportion of highly educated multiple job holders are increasing, it is important to note that non-college educated individuals are still more likely to hold these multiple jobs. And given that multiple job holders tend to work long hours, and this trend can exacerbate health disparities among the poor and the advantaged. And workers in these secondary jobs often have limited bargaining power at the workplace to negotiate better wages or working conditions. So this means that those who are already disadvantaged, who are pushed to take multiple jobs, may face even greater challenges in terms of work-life balance, stress, and overall well-being.
Right. So as just mentioned by Professor Kim, I hear statistics prove that working hours have risen in recent times. I suppose this reality is owing to the presence of people with multiple jobs.
Right. Following Korea's implementation of the 52-hour work week system, we have been observing a decline in people working over hours in the past years. However, now the trend has reversed. According to Statistics Korea, the number of people working at least 53 hours a week in 2023 increased 4% from 2022 to close to 3.1 million. It's not only an on-year year-on-year rise, but the first time in a decade that we are seeing an increase in people working longer than set by law. The number of people working long hours has been steadily declining since 2014 as organizational cultures in the office have shifted to value family and personal time. The paradox we're seeing now is that the increase in work hours appears to be the result of the 52-hour work week having fully taken hold in Korea, meaning the reduced hours people work at their main job allow them to take on other jobs, so making end jobs more common. That is probably why regular employees make up the largest proportion of users of gig work apps, a gig worker being someone who receives wages based on one-time or short-term projects.
Right. That being said then, so what can you tell us about the income made by people with multiple jobs? I mean, is the work well worth the effort?
Well, you would think that, of course, people's income is likely better than if you only have one job. But unfortunately, data shows that while the average work week for end jobbers is nearly 55 hours a week, they earn less per hour than those with one job. Meaning working longer hours is helping to increase earnings, but only to a limited extent. The average monthly wage of people with multiple jobs stood at 2.95 million won, or roughly $2,150, which is about 210,000 won, or $153 more than those with a single job. But when converted to hourly earnings, it was 13,000 won, or $9.5, versus 16,000 won, or $11.7 for multi-jobbers versus single jobbers. Also, people with more than only one main job were also significantly less likely to be enrolled in national pension or employment insurance than those with one workplace.
Right, I see. Professor Kim, keeping in mind what Soa has just said, do you suppose the lack of quality jobs perhaps is behind the insufficient income of people with more than one job?
Yes, and there are two ways to look at this issue. First one is selection effect. Here, selection effect means that individuals who take on multiple jobs tend to be less educated and less skilled compared to those who can hold only a single job. Speaking of that again, many less skilled workers engage in multiple jobs because they find it challenging to secure high quality and well-paying jobs. In this context, it is not necessarily the quality of jobs per se, but the quality of worker that determine the insufficient income. And the second reason for the limited financial benefits of multiple job holding is related to, of course, the nature of the job that people typically take on as secondary or tertiary employment. With a few exceptions, most of these additional jobs are not high quality positions that offer substantial remuneration or opportunities for career growth. Instead, the majority of secondary and tertiary jobs are characterized by low wages, limited benefits, and less job security compared to the primary job. So these non-standard forms of employment often fail to provide significant boost to the overall earnings of multiple job holders.
Right, I see. And moving forward then, Professor Kim, what do you propose to perhaps allow for a balance between work and satisfaction for people with multiple jobs?
So important thing is the responsibility for ensuring work-life balance and satisfaction among multiple job holders should not fall solely on the individual workers, as many of them are engaging in these multiple jobs out of necessity rather than choice. So the government has a crucial role to play in creating policies and programs that support the well-being of these workers. I guess the first thing the government can do is to enforce strict regulations on working hours to prevent employers from exploiting multiple job holders. This can involve setting a maximum limit on weekly work hours, or mandating overtime pay for hours worked beyond the standard work week, or ensuring that workers receive adequate rest periods between shifts. As the statistics Soa shared, excessive working hours can have detrimental effect on workers' happiness and overall well-being, particularly among young adults. So it's critical that they set a regulation on these work hours. And another thing is the government should encourage employers to offer flexible work options, such as adjustable schedules or remote work or job sharing. And these kind of flexible arrangements can help multiple job holders better manage their various work commitments and create more time for personal and family responsibilities so they can manage work-life balance better.
Right. So I understand this trend of being a jack of many trades, if I may, is also evident in countries beyond, of course, South Korea.
Right. Well, let's take a look at the U.S. first, where there are many more people with more than one job than here in Korea. In fact, the U.S. Labor Department showed almost 8.4 million Americans had multiple jobs as of October last year, which is 5.2% of the country's workforce. So also percentage-wise, that is much more than here in Korea. As I mentioned, it was around 2% recently. Now, this was the highest level in the U.S. since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic and is attributed to the burden of inflation, but also due to the increase in working from home jobs, which happened during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, among the multiple job holders, some 5 million held a full-time and a part-time job. Close to 2 million had two part-time jobs. 1.1 million indicated they held jobs where hours varied, and fewer than 400,000 worked two full-time jobs. I don't know how that is possible. But meanwhile, in Japan, some 3.05 million workers held side jobs in 2022, according to figures by the country's Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications, which conducts a survey on the nation's employment structure once in 5 years. And that was a rise by 600,000 from 2017. Some 4.8% of multi-jobbers made up the total workforce in Japan. So again, that is, again, a higher percentage than here in Korea. Japanese media recently put spotlight on the increasing number of people that are fined for missing tax returns, happenings that are linked to the rise in second or more jobs.
Right. Professor Kim, in what direction do you believe should the government's labor policies flow, perhaps, to allow for a productive work environment then for people with several jobs?
I think, first of all, it's too early to determine what kind of policies can be implemented to kind of promote work environment for these people because we don't have much knowledge about kind of working conditions that they're facing. So first of all, there should be a scientific research conducted so we can better understand the kind of working conditions that these multi-job holders are facing. And another thing is, it seems like based on the descriptive statistic, these workers are facing unfavorable working conditions. So I think the government should work to ensure that all workers, including those with multiple jobs, receive fair wages and have access to essential benefits, such as paid sick leave and retirement plans. So by providing financial stability and security, these measures can help reduce the stress and anxieties often associated with holding multiple jobs.
Right, so keeping the welfare of workers at the forefront then. Professor Kim, as always, thank you very much for your time and your thoughts today. And so here in the studio, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you, Sunny.
Right, well, that brings us to the end of this edition of Issues and Insiders. As always, thank you for watching.